We all love progress, breakthroughs, and excitement. I know I do. We've just had a tiny glimpse of this with the slow planets entering new signs in the summer months of 2025, and this will be the big theme of 2026, but progress only sticks if it's built on something solid. So this fall, with the slow planets retrograding back into their old water and earth signs, the solar system is basically saying, slow down, consolidate, work on your foundations, whether it's finances, family, health, or emotional well-being, so that when the acceleration picks up again, you don't burn out or collapse halfway through. How does the solar system say that exactly? Well, it's those slow planets again. Over the summer months, Saturn, Neptune, and Uranus entered the new signs, the fire sign Aries and the air sign Gemini. But slow planets like those have one retrograde phase every year. Normally, it's not a big deal. I do not talk about Neptune retrogrades or Pluto retrogrades on a regular basis. This time, though, Saturn, Neptune, and Uranus are for one last time visiting their old water and earth element signs where they have spent years. So the general mood will shift back to earth and water. I'll talk about it in a bit. But it's not just that. While in those old signs, they also form beneficial, helpful aspects with each other, as well as with a generous and very strong Jupiter in Cancer. And this aspect pattern has so much potential. I want to explore it with you. I am Nadia, the astrologer for people who do not necessarily believe in astrology, but who benefit from it nevertheless. So what do I have to say about this fall retrograde situation? First, I will give you the timeline. Timing is everything in astrology. Then I will talk about how the fall retrograde may be helpful for finances and security, for family and emotional well-being, for health and body, and for long-term projects. Then I will give you very concrete advice, things to do during this time. After that, I will give you a sense of where it's all going, which will be all of the slow planets forming aspects with each other in the summer of 2026, a big deal. And I'll talk about what that means for us mortals. So let's start with timing, because again, timing is everything in astrology. In September, Saturn returned back into the water sign of Pisces after having spent a couple of months in Aries. In October, Neptune will do the same. In November, Uranus, after having spent a couple of months in the air sign of Gemini, retrogrades back into Taurus, which is an earth element sign. And through all of this, Jupiter is moving through Cancer, a water sign, forming helpful, beautiful, supportive aspects with each of those planets. That means that 4 of the slowest, most influential planets are working together, but in the steadier, slower elements of earth and water. What would follow is that from February to April 2026, these same planets will again enter the new signs that belong to the fire and air element, more exciting. In summer 2026, Jupiter will enter the fire sign of Leo, and in August, all of the slow and slow-ish planets, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, will be aspecting each other from fire and air signs, which is a completely unique situation. Very exciting. I will be all over it, but now let's go back to the current retrogrades that are maybe less exciting, but more grounding, centering, and possibly even healing. Why does it matter that this fall the planets are now leaving the fire and air signs and returning to water and earth signs? Water and earth are the slow elements. They're about what lasts, what holds, what sustains us. Earth grounds us in the physical world, in our bodies, in our homes, in our money, in the systems that keep life steady. Water connects us to emotions, memory, family, and the bonds we form with other people that nurture us. Together, these elements do not push us to speed up. They invite us to pause, to strengthen our roots, and to make sure that we have ground under our feet. So while fire and air want us to chase the future, water and earth remind us that the future only works if the basics like health, security, relationships, emotional balance are in place. And now to the themes that will be influenced by the retrogrades. Let's start with money and security. With Uranus back in Taurus and Jupiter in Cancer, the security loving signs, there is support for stabilizing what you already have. It's less about risky leaps forward and more about strengthening your base, like savings, smart budgeting, investments that are safe and familiar rather than risky and exciting. It's also a great moment to rethink your relationship with your resources, how you spend, how you save, and what actually gives you a feeling of safety and security. It doesn't have to be too conservative because, well, Uranus is involved and because we do live in the future, kind of. But it should be more conservative than what will follow in the next few years. Now, family and emotional life. Saturn and Neptune back in Pisces will be asking us to check in with our inner world and maybe even with our spiritual core. Have we neglected our hearts and souls in the rush of the summer? Have relationships been put on autopilot? Jupiter in Cancer adds a theme of nurturing and protection. This is the season to tend to family ties, to your chosen family, maybe to your emotional or spiritual roots. Conversations that bring people closer are very important, as well as the rituals that give you comfort or simply being present with the loved ones. And all of this gets a cosmic green light. Bonus points if you get sentimental, especially around the winter holidays, or if you explore this spiritual aspect of life and interact with something that creates in you something like a sense of reverence. Earth and water also point us to the body. This fall is perfect for grounding practices like adjusting your routines so that they are sustainable long term, like thinking about healing what's been neglected or listening to your body's rhythms. So think nutrition, sleep, stress management, movement that feels nourishing rather than punishing. In sport, it isn't about peak performance, it's about building resilience so that when life speeds up again, you do not crash. Psychologically, it's your chance to feel the feelings that are half cooked, maybe not quite developed yet. Some of those feelings will go away after you give them proper time and attention, but some will develop into important and influential motivational forces. And finally, long-term projects. Saturn back in Pisces already, as I'm recording, wants us to finish unfinished business and let go of something that's unsustainable for the long term. If you have started something in the past few years and never quite wrapped it up, this is your moment. Jupiter in Cancer says, grow it or strengthen it, but keep it simple. So the next few months are great for tying up loose ends, for strengthening foundations, and making sure your big ideas are nourishing you and not depleting you. So how do you put this into practice? Well, first of all, you probably already have some plans for the upcoming colder months. The slow planets in water and earth signs are so boring that they would absolutely support just following through. But if you're looking for a new angle, I have a few simple ideas. First, revisit and complete projects instead of starting brand new ones. Second, build or top up your safety net, whether this is financial, social, or health-related support systems. 3, declutter your space. Simplify routines and cut out everything that drains you. 4, spend more time near water or in nature. literally grounding yourself and also watering yourself. 5. Create rhythms that feel nourishing. Cooking at home, setting regular rest times, leaning on supportive people. And 6, give your feelings time and attention. Not one of those things, but another thing to ground yourself in your own story would be to have a proper astrological readings. I do those and mine can be booked with a link up here as well as below in the description. But no matter who you do it with, during those colder months, when the slow planets are retrograding, try using the resulting astrological story about you as an anchor. Look for the parts of the story about your natal chart or transits or whatever that resonate with you emotionally, that you can draw upon as you move forward. If there is something like that in your reading, something that moves you, it may be worth it to buy a piece of jewelry or some wall art, any object that would remind you of this. So a physical object to return to ground yourself emotionally as things start speeding up next year. And talking about next year, here's the bigger picture. In 2026, all of the slow planets, Pluto in Aquarius, Saturn and Neptune in Aries, Uranus and Gemini, and even Jupiter in Leo will be aspecting each other in the fire and air signs. That's when momentum that may have been hinted at during the summer months of 2025 really takes off. It's great for collaboration, innovation, breakthroughs, and acceleration. The only hard aspect in that whole pattern will be Jupiter opposing Pluto, which is more about power struggles around growth, but we can deal with that when it comes. But the energy itself, it's electric, it's fast moving, it's progress oriented. This fall is really like a pit stop. So use these months to heal, to stabilize, to root yourself so that when the future really arrives in 2026, you're ready and stable enough to thrive in it. So take advantage of this quieter but still very powerful window. It may not be as fancy as what comes next, but it's the work that we do now that will make everything that follows more sustainable. If you want to know how this plays out in your chart, where exactly do Saturn, Neptune, Uranus, and Jupiter interact with your personal planets, that's where a personal reading comes in. You'll find the link to it below. And I wish you to have a beautiful and meaningful and grounding entry into the colder, darker months of the year. They do hold a lot of promise.